Well, hello, Dr. Tricia. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
I am excited to be here. Let's do this.
I know. And this is we're going to talk about how stress and cortisol affect women. And most of my audience is women. We definitely have some men that tune in, my husband included, every once in a while when he says he takes time to do that. But especially managing a chronic disease like type 1 that we don't take a day off from. And I think with us, it's more evident because most of us wear devices that are giving us that sugar feedback. So I think that's what compounds the stress as well. So, right, there's so many layers to this. So I'm just excited about what you're going to share and some actionable steps and some things that we can do to reduce it. So tell me a little bit about you're a doctor, you're a naturopathic doctor. Love naturopathic doctors. I'm a big believer in just functional whole system approach to our health. So how did you stumble upon, or has this always been your passion as far as this area of expertise?
Funny, I actually had no idea this is what I was going to do. And I grew up in my childhood in the modeling industry, so very much on stages and cameras and runways and things like that. And around the time that I was in my teens, I thought, I really love animals. I seem to really love medicine. And I decided to go on the veterinary medicine track. And a lot of life events happened. My dad had a stroke. I saw the downfalls of conventional medicine. I really was interested in biochemistry and physiology, and veterinary medicine is great for that because you have to learn to diagnose
Mm.
based off behavioral cues and labs. They
Mm.
can't tell you what's wrong. You have to
That
figure
is
it out.
so true. I never even
Yeah,
thought about that, but yes, that's so obvious, right?
yeah, and if you
Yeah.
apply that to humans, we don't do that in the conventional
Hmm.
model. We go by data only or like if this then that type thing. And I saw a lot of holes in medicine. And at that point I said, you know what? I don't think I want to stay in veterinary. I think I want to figure out how to apply that principle more to humans and what medicine would fulfill that. And this was, gosh, I mean, earlier stages of the internet, I guess. And I just happened to come across this ad for naturopathic medical school. And I said, what is that? And looked into it and was like, okay, root cause medicine, I'm in. Let's learn about how we can change our lifestyles, about herbs, about acupuncture, about nutrition. And let's see if I can make a difference in human medicine, like I felt like I
Hmm.
was doing in veterinary medicine. And that's how I stumbled upon it. And it's been great. I mean,
Hmm.
it is exactly the philosophy I've always lived by. And I've always believed that food and lifestyle and stress management and mindset um, is key. And
Hmm.
I've also believed that we don't always have to use a medication for everything. I mean, sometimes we do, right? Sometimes
Yeah,
we have to use insulin. We don't have a choice. And I'm so
yeah.
thankful for that side of medicine, but there's a lot of situations that can be changed in an alternative way. And so having all of that education has been a game changer for me in my own health and for patients of mine.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. And you are known as the Adrenal Whisperer. Love that. So tell us how that, and of course, all this is tied to the adrenal system. So I'm sure you'll unpack that and kind of help us
Sure.
explain how the system is working. So tell us
Yeah.
about where that nickname came from.
Yeah. I, just like many of you listening, have been knocked down so many times.
Mhm.
So many times. I've had numerous deaths in the family. I've had to go through grief. I've found
Mhm.
myself at the bottom, not wanting to move forward.
Mm.
And through this process, really started to see how much stress, whether it be external or internal, which I know we'll unpack, right? How much it really has an impact on our health in general. And when I started looking at all of my patients, no matter what they came in with, they could come in with a hot flash or hair loss or diabetes or autoimmune or whatever. If we didn't address the stress, if we didn't look at the adrenal system, if we didn't take action towards future stress and current stress, they would not
Mhm.
get as far in their health.
Right.
This was the rate limiting factor that was being missed by most physicians and not being
Yeah.
addressed.
Right.
And so I started really honing in on what if every single protocol I did, every single patient that I work on, no matter what they come in with, I really also address the adrenals. How much further would they get? And through that
Mm.
process, I got really in tune. I can spot an adrenal fatigue stage, a symptom like that. And so when I started talking with some of my colleagues, they're like, man, you're an adrenal whisperer. And I was like,
Oh, okay.
yes, there it is. I'm an
Yes.
adrenal whisperer. And
Yeah.
that, so it was kind of built over just years of personal experience
Yeah.
and professional experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And understanding how much the adrenal system really plays a role in every single thing that our body does. We
Yeah.
need to pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see how passionate about this. This is definitely your calling and why you're here. And yeah, your true gift to give back. So explain the adrenal system if you can. And if you can, because we know, we hear all these terms, adrenal fatigue. We hear of, oh gosh, what's the other one? And
Adrenal dysfunction.
yeah, dysfunction. That's another one. I don't think we really, the average person really understands, what the system is doing, why it's happening, maybe why. I think generally we're walking around knowing that we're stressed. And
Yeah.
I think recognizing that is the first step too. But I think really understanding why your body is responding and these symptoms that occur
Mhm.
when stress turns into chronic stress,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So our adrenal glands sit on top of our kidneys, and they are basically built there to keep us alive. So
Mhm.
in a time of acute stress, if something were to happen, our body shifts into a different state and gets us away from the stress, and we survive. But that's not what we're doing in our day-to-day life. We are constantly bombarded by stress. So when I say the word stress, right, and the word adrenal, this is a really important thing because I agree with you. I don't think people realize what stress is. I'm actually
Mhm.
on a mission to change the definition of stress. Because when I
Love
ask
it.
people, I say, are you under stress? They go, oh, yeah, well, I mean, I have a good life. I mean, I do 1,000 things, but it's just normal. It's just what
Mhm.
happens. Even when
Very
you go to
true.
the doctor and you say, hey, doc, I'm having hair loss. Oh, yeah, it's just stress, just stress, which
Right.
drives me
Right.
insane.
Right.
So imagine this. So, well, let me say this. Stress can be anything. It can be a beep of a cell phone. How many times
Mm.
does your cell phone go off during a day? When you scroll through social media, every time your brain goes, ooh, 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 that's a
That's
stress
true.
to the body. The body doesn't know the difference. So imagine this.
Mm.
You're in the woods, you're taking a hike, you're chilling out, you're just kind of enjoying nature, and around the corner comes a bear.
Mm.
In that moment, your blood pressure goes up. You focus in on your destination. You stop digesting your food. You stop
Mhm.
manufacturing hormones. You stop doing anything that isn't required for you to get away from that bear. It is the
Mhm.
most beautiful system in the body. It is
Mhm.
incredible that your
Mhm.
body, in a moment's notice, can change everything. It can change how you utilize blood sugar. It can change
Mhm.
everything so that you can get away from that bear. If
Mhm.
you get away from the bear and you recover, we're good. But here's the problem. As soon as we get away from the bear, there's a bing of that cell phone. There's a, hey, mom, where are my shoes? There's a, hey, we need this right now, right? Something major happens.
Yeah.
Or internally, which we will get to. And you have to run from another bear. And then you get away from the bear and there's another bear and there's another bear. And then we start to anticipate a bear. So we're
Mm.
just walking and all of a sudden our brain says, oop, there was a bear that came over from there before. And we start to get anxiety and overwhelmed and anxiousness because we're
Yeah.
anticipating something that's going to happen.
Mm.
Problem with this is it keeps us in this anticipatory state, which is a stimulation of a nervous system that we have called the sympathetic nervous system. It's
Mhm.
our fight or flight, our run from a
Mhm.
bear. And the
Mhm.
more time that we spend in that system, the less time we're doing the things that we need to do to repair our body for
Mhm.
normal homeostasis, digestion of food, elimination of waste, clearing of toxins,
Mhm.
absorption of nutrients. All of these things get down regulated so we can run. And I think this beautiful thing like of technology that we've come to rely on has a lot of benefits, but also has us always having to be on, always having us to feel like we have to be doing something. So
Mhm.
I don't know about you. Do you ever like when everything's really
Yes.
quiet, you're like, why is it so quiet?
Uh-huh.
What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I
Yeah.
just sitting here?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah. Yeah.
anticipating that
We
we're
get,
supposed to be doing
mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And so this causes a chronic state where the body has to adapt. It has no choice but to adapt because it has to keep you running from that bear. And we
Right.
see massive changes at that point in our heart rate, our cholesterol, our blood sugar, our digestion, our sleep-wake cycles, our manufacturing and transferring of hormones from thyroid to sex hormones. We see changes in
Yeah.
mood. all of these things start to shift because the body it has to
Yeah.
get away from the bear. So
Yeah.
that's what the adrenal system does. It has a hand in everything. It thinks you're running. And it's up to us to teach our body that it's not running and learn to spend more time in that rest and digest parasympathetic state,
Hmm.
so that we can deal with all these stressors that keep coming at us and not worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And okay, you mentioned external, internal, but
Mhm.
something that a word that just popped up is appropriate. Um, it's
Mhm.
like, I think we've gotten just desensitized to what true stress is. So our body is just always reacting, responding. And I keep thinking back about living with diabetes because, and I mentioned this before we hit record, we have CGMs, which are amazing. The information it's life-changing to be able to have that constant data to tell us, or we've got an insulin pump that's, that we still have to interact with, we still have to help kind of give us what we need when we need it. There's so many, another thing that I talk about, this is a phrase I made up years ago, and it's not something that I made up, but it's just something that I say a lot. It's just managing our expectations.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to do that either. I mean, I'm speaking honestly today. Stress is something that, and I don't know that I call my life stressful, but it's very busy.
Mhm.
There's a lot of decisions that have to be made. And especially with a disease like diabetes, because we
Mhm.
are thinking, I mean, and I've seen the data, I forget the number again. It's this unbelievable amount of decisions we make on a daily basis based on just managing this disease. So how do you want to talk first about the external factors and then maybe the internal factors? And then you know, just a way that we can kind of see ourselves in this situation and how we can kind of there's not much we can control in this life, but I think the way that we think and our mindset around, and I'm a big believer in understanding why this is so important. And you can probably agree, nobody wants to walk around feeling stressed and overwhelmed.
No,
We
nobody.
don't want to have to go to the doctor and be prescribed a antidepressant or anxiety meds. And I know those are useful in certain circumstances, but I think that's a big part of what this issue is going on, especially as women are aging, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of other symptoms that are kind of piling on top of each other. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the past stress has an impact on that aging process. So it gets
Mm,
very confusing when you get to midlife because you're like, wait, all these little symptoms I've had over the years are all, now my adrenals are kind of out of dysregulation and all the therapies don't work as well. So yeah, let's talk about the internal and external. So I think most of
okay.
us can identify external stress, right? I mean, that's pretty easy. It could be as simple as an annoying coworker, right? Chewing something and you're like, oh, they're annoying me. Like anytime you're like,
Right.
oh, there's an external stressor. Oh man, not again.
Mhm.
We got it. Okay. But what happens when we have an external stress, as I spoke about earlier, it causes a change in the internal environment. So if
Mm,
our body is always adapting to stress and it's down regulating our regulatory systems, we're going
mm,
to develop nutritional deficiencies. We're
mm.
going to develop, imbalances in hormones because we're constantly running from a bear. So our body can't do those jobs well.
Right,
So the
right.
internal stressors are the changes that happen because of the external stressors. Okay. So for example, well, let's think about this. If you had a product that you were making and you had an assembly line, I'm trying to find something on my desk here. Let's see. So I have a pen, right?
Okay.
There's a
Hmm.
cap, there's different components. So you put it on the assembly line and each part of the assembly line adds another part, right? And then
Hmm.
you produce the pen and you sell it and you make money and you put that money back into the company, you pay all the employees, everyone stays happy, the products keep going. Our
Hmm.
body is exactly the same way. Its product is energy. So
Yeah.
we go down this line and we have all these little things that we're doing. And granted, we have other products as well. We may make serotonin, we make dopamine, we make estrogen, we make progesterone, whatever we need to make.
Right.
So as you go down this line, they require certain parts. They require vitamin C, they require vitamin B6, we require magnesium. So
Right.
if those are missing because the body's been running from stress and the regulatory stuff is not there, you're going to have a problem with the product. If you have a problem
Mm,
with the product, you're going to have very angry workers because someone may be sitting there saying, I showed up, I put the cap on, Where is the next person who's supposed to put the stamp on the pen? And then
Right.
everything gets backed up, right? The
Mm-hmm.
higher
Mm-hmm.
ups are unhappy because we're not producing any energy or product. The workers get all backed up, and the body gets very dysregulated.
Mm.
Every time that happens, that's more internal stress because now we have a backup of things. It sounds overwhelming, but if you think about it like that, our body is
Yeah.
a machine. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautifully put together.
Mm-hmm.
Nutrients matter. Little
Yeah.
cofactors over arrows that drive certain reactions. These are what our
Mm-hmm.
body is built on. So those are all internal stressors. So some of the mistakes that I see people make when they address stress is they start to deal with the external. They go to counseling, they do, journaling, maybe they start to do some mindset work. It's great because that's very important. But if you don't also look at the internal stress, you don't also look at all the imbalances that are going on inside the body, you will never actually get all the way back into that healing state. And there's more stress
Mm.
that will then cause imbalances within the body that could cause, for example, depression, anxiety in itself, right?
Right.
Which causes
Right.
more stress. So it's kind
Right.
of like a hamster wheel of stress.
Mm.
Um, does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So when you say where do you and blood sugar, and we should dive into blood sugar because there's a very close relationship, obviously, between cortisol and insulin and blood sugar, and these are very important things. When you were talking about the CGM, there's always a yin and yang, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
beauty in knowing all of those numbers because you know what to do. There's also every time you check it, you're going to have a stress response.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because you're
Right.
like, oh gosh, I wonder what my blood sugar is. Okay, okay, okay. It's okay right now. Oh, it's getting a little bit low, right? So we have
Yeah.
those
Mm-hmm.
internal stressors within them.
Mm-hmm.
And learning how to choose. You said at the beginning, choice. And I think this is the most powerful thing that we need to recognize if we want to get adrenals under control is we are presented in our day with 1,000 tasks and 1,000 choices.
Mm.
The choice we make matters. Honestly, I have a child who just started driving. He's 16, right? He gets in the car and I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, is he going to run into a tree? Like, what's
Right.
going to happen? I have a
Get it.
choice if I'm going to freak out over that or not. I have a choice whether I'm going to accept that or whether I'm going to take it. When I
Mm.
take it, that just adds to my stress bucket, right? There are some things we don't always have a choice. You don't have a choice to worry about your blood sugar. You have to pay attention to it. That is something that you're going to have to figure into your stress load, that CGM monitoring. But you don't necessarily have to worry about what your neighbor thinks about something, right?
That's true.
You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to solve other people's problems. And
Mm.
I think choice is something that we have let go of. We're living in a world of have to rather than get to. We
Mm.
have to go to the grocery store. We have to get this done. In all honesty, we get to go to the grocery store.
Yeah. I like
I've
that idea.
I've
Yes.
lost so many of my friends,
Gratitude.
and
Mm-hmm.
when my mom was dying of cancer, she couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. Like
Mm-hmm.
she needed assistance to
Yeah.
get up and to get to the bathroom. And that's something that we do every single day that we get to do that
Mm-hmm.
maybe we don't stop and say, gosh, I got to go to the bathroom today. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome,
Yeah.
right? It's like you're in the middle of working, you're like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. It's like, no, I get to go to the bathroom.
That's
That,
such a good
you know,
example. We're interrupted.
we're interrupted
Yeah.
to do these things. And I think
Yeah.
making choices and also really taking value in what you get to do every single day. You have a fortunate ability of being able to get a CGM, that you'll be able to
Yeah.
use the technology
Yeah.
and get to make a choice to make a response. That's so much better than the diabetics of 50 years ago who didn't have
Absolutely.
that technology to help them make a logical choice. I think we spend a lot of time in that have to, and we need to get out of that. That's the
Yeah.
first thing you can do. You can reduce probably 80% of your bears by simply changing the mindset around it and then
Mm.
focus internally on how to fix that 20%.
Mm. I like that. That's good. That's really good. Yeah. So yeah, my mind's going a million ways here because yeah, there's so many different, when we boundaries is something too. And maybe women have a little bit more trouble, saying no.
For sure.
Um, saying, no, not now, this is not good for me right now. I know that's something I definitely work on with my clients, is just trying to, because I love your approach. You're definitely looking at the whole body, the whole system, the lifestyle, all those other things that are coming at us that are either, they're either triggering a stress response, or they're getting us to the point where, and even maybe some of it is maybe even magnified in our own space, Uh, yeah, and it's so different. This is another good example of how different we all are. So, the term adrenal, stress and all of that, it fits everybody, but I think the approach, and it sounds like this is probably how you help people. It's very individual, isn't it? Because you're really looking at a person as an individual, which is where, this is where this is what naturopathic medicine is, functional medicine is. It's really looking at us, even though we built and created the same, we're in a different space of time and a different stage of life. Yeah.
And different factors environmentally. I mean, some people have been exposed to toxins. Some people have different genetic makeups, to different things they're predisposed to. And so where the stress goes in your body is different. I mean, you could take two different women and say, when you're stressed out, where do you feel it?
Where do you feel it?
A lot. Mine's always in my stomach. If I'm stressed out, if I get nausea or troubles, elimination or whatever, I know I'm stressed out. I have other people that it affects their lungs. They have allergies when they're stressed out. I mean, we all have different predispositions and different body types, different ages, different exposures, different reactions. And although we all may experience stress, the level of stress that we experience is different. I experience probably just as much possible stressful events in a day as someone else, but how I interpret them and what my body does with them is quite different than the next person. And I think that's really important. I think that individualized medicine, that we all have individualized biochemistry.
Yeah.
If I have deficiencies in vitamin C, but I'm taking vitamin C, the other person with deficiencies in vitamin C may have a different reaction than I would because they're not taking it, So,
Right,
I mean,
right.
and I do think when we treat stress in general, when you just go to the conventional model, the only therapies available are anti-anxiety meds, antidepressant meds, and talk therapy. That's it.
Interesting. Right.
And that's putting everyone in the same box.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
right, because it doesn't
Right.
work, right?
Right.
Those
Right.
are only a small portion of
Yeah.
what we need to do to really get a hold of it. And to be honest, so much of this, like you were saying, it comes from within and setting boundaries. So much of this comes from us. So I have this three-step thing where something comes along. I don't know, I need a stressor. Give me an example. What's a good example? I don't know, my child driving. Let's just say he leaves the house in his
That's a
car,
great example.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have to ask, there's three things I have to do. Number one, I need to ask myself, do I have any control over the outcome? I mean, technically I could keep him home, I guess, but then he wouldn't live his life. Once he's in the car, I have no control over the outcome, right? I don't. Second question is it worth my energy to worry about it? No, because all it's going to do is send me into a tizzy, right? It's just going to make my day worse. It's not worth it. So the answer is no and no. Then the question is, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to take this on? Am I going to delegate this to someone else? Or am I going to let it go? And in this case, the answers were no and no. I'm letting it go, right?
Yeah.
When you start taking every single choice and everything that bothers you and ask those questions, do I have control over the outcome? And is this worth my energy? And then choose, take it on, delegate it, or let it go. And the cool thing is, if it is within your control and it is worth your energy, the solution will be very clear. So when you take it on, you'll be able to fix it. It'll be over with, off your plate, no problem. Right? If you don't have control over the outcome, you can sit there and worry all day long, but you're never going to take care of it, right?
Worry does not solve anything. No.
We got to go. We got to get it out of there. Like,
yeah.
I find that when my patients do this, a good 80 to 90% of the stuff that they worry about gets thrown out the window. Not worth it anymore. I have no control over it. Just that there's so much power for every single one of you listening by just those questions. Like if you just took one day and every time you felt yourself trying to have to do something, ask yourself those questions and see how much you can unload in that moment.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's such a good tool. So what do you think why is it, and you mentioned this just a bit ago about how when we're aging, hormones are dropping. We talk a lot about perimenopause into menopause here. What's going on with our system? I know I don't know the term exactly. I've written articles about it and I can't even remember what it's termed, but basically our adrenal function, abilities, capacity just changes as those other hormones are dropping as well.
Yeah.
And then I wire in obviously insulin because when our blood sugar is high or low,
Mhm.
this is another part of it. And this is such a great topic because when we are not at a goal, healthy, lots of ways to describe a blood sugar, let's just call it 100 milligrams per deciliter, for measuring tools. That's an awesome, blood sugar. We'd all like to be there, 24/7. But that's another factor. So when we're high or low, those are external. They're
Mhm.
external because it's things that are kind of happening to our body that we're
Mhm.
experiencing from the external. But we internally take that because I will tell you, high and low blood sugar changes your whole
Mhm.
perception on your environment,
Yeah.
yourself, your thinking, your mindset. So that is something. And I've experienced this myself. And so where do we go from there? What's the best, just kind of recognizing that.
Well, I think let's talk quickly about the endocrine system in general. There's really only
Mhm.
four parts, right? We've got the sex hormones, we've got the thyroid hormones, we've got the blood sugar management, and we've got the adrenal hormones. And
Okay.
if you think of it like a scale, right? They all want to be balanced. They're all working to balance each other. So if you have a tip in one, all the others are going to move,
Hmm.
right? To balance themselves back out. So anytime in any of those four systems that you have a change, it's going to cause an internal stress on the body that causes all the other hormones to move, right? So when you were
Hmm.
talking about as sex hormones are dropping, you're going through menopause, you're aging, let's just say that the estrogen is dropping. That causes a relative change in the progesterone, the testosterone, which is going to cause a relative change in the thyroid, which is going to cause a relative change in blood
Oh,
sugar,
right.
insulin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Flip that around. You have a drop in blood sugar, changes insulin, right? Insulin's going to have an impact on what the other hormones do. So they're always trying to level each other out. Um, Cortisol likes to win. Cortisol and insulin are the tough ones because cortisol and insulin are always like, no, 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 I'm up. Nope, I'm in charge. Nope, nope,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
me. Nope. Ah, ah. So they're always going like this at the expense of the other hormones. So, for
Mm.
example, cortisol can pull progesterone and turn it into cortisol. So if you're in the woods, you're running from a bear, and you could be perimenopausal or menopausal, and you're running, right? Cortisol says, sorry, progesterone, I got you, converts it into cortisol. Progesterone levels drop. We end up with an estrogen dominance, and we end up a
Hmm.
little bit snippy. I know
Mm.
none of you know what I'm talking about. You're a little snippy. You
I'll
yell
scratch
at
my head.
everyone. You're mad
Hmm.
about the dishes in the sink, right? You're feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And we immediately say, let's treat the hormones. So maybe you get your labs drawn and they say, oh, your progesterone is low or your estrogen dominant, but they're not looking at why.
Why? Hmm.
So then they put more progesterone in, and what happens? Well, the next month rolls around and you're running from a bear, and it pulls from that progesterone, makes more cortisol, impacts more insulin.
Yeah.
Insulin starts to have an impact. Blood sugar starts to change. Blood sugar changes, more stress inside the body.
Yeah.
More stress inside the body causes more cortisol, pulls from more
Hmm.
hormones. Get my picture?
I get it. I
It's
know. It's a
always
hot
moving
mess.
because it
Yeah.
has to. So
Yeah.
anytime a physician is treating anything in the hormone system, blood sugar wise, sex hormone, thyroid, or adrenal, you have to pay attention to the other aspects of the endocrine system. If you don't, it will continue to cause this internal malfunction. I have
Mm.
treated diabetics over the years, type 1, type 2. Every single one of them gets better glucose control when their cortisol is under control, when
Mm.
they are managing their stress, because we can do a lot with our diet, right? And
Hmm.
diet matters. We can do a lot with controlling the diet. But when you're running from a bear, the body, can produce its own sugar too. It can change its levels. It's going to
Yeah.
always default to running from the bear, right? So
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
efforts that you do externally may not have as powerful of an internal impact if we're not paying
Mm.
attention to that cortisol response.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that somewhat answer your question? I mean, they all
Oh my
play.
gosh. I
Like
know.
we could
Yeah.
we could
Yeah.
intersect that circle in so many places. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a fun game, actually. If you're like,
Yeah.
hey, Tell me how cortisol plays with sex hormones. Tell me how it impacts progesterone, insulin,
Yeah.
thyroid. It's fun, right? For
Yeah.
me, because everything that happens will have an impact. And going back even to nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deficient in B vitamins. You can't metabolize your food, your sugar, your breakdown into energy. There's all of these layers of it. I truly don't understand how endocrinologists only look at one thing. I just don't understand it because it is such an interplay. That
Yeah.
is what is so beautiful about the endocrine system, is that
Yeah.
any moment it can pull resources, to make
Just,
a
yeah.
change in our
Just to
body
survive. Yeah. Yeah.
just to survive.
Yeah.
And we so often just say, oh, I'm going to the thyroid doctor. I'm going to the diabetes doctor. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to the hormone doctor. I'm going to the
Mm-hmm.
adrenal doctor. This is the same doctor, folks, right? Same system.
I know. I totally agree. I totally agree. So when you're working, and I'm assuming that you run labs, are you
Oh, yeah.
big on levels? Okay. So when you meet with somebody, do they tend to come to you with health symptoms? Well, I mean, because
Mm.
we know there's health symptoms attached, but are they coming to you because they're just overwhelmed, they're stressed out, or are they coming to you because they've got a symptom? And
Mm.
then you are obviously just turning that back to the foundation. I'm big about the foundation. It's like we got to look at what's going on. So is that what you're finding with your patients?
Most of my patients will come to me with a problem. I've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or
Okay.
Hashimoto's, and nobody seems to have a solution other than levothyroxine. What can you do? And then, they know I talk about adrenals. They know that the endocrine system is where I play.
Mm-hmm.
But I do a lot of labs, and I don't just look at the thyroid. Like I go, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's look at the thyroid and a full panel of the thyroid, including reverse T3 and free T3.
Mm-hmm.
And let's
Mm-hmm.
look at the insulin levels and the glucose levels, and let's look at the hormone levels and see where they're at,
Yeah.
and the adrenal levels and the general metabolics, because
Mm-hmm.
metabolics matter,
Mm-hmm.
nutritional things, all these things. And I look at it as a whole picture. And
Yeah.
typically,
Beautiful.
typically it's real easy to just say, hey, let's just put you on thyroid medication. But
Mm-hmm.
anytime we put something in, it
Yeah.
causes all the other
An out of
things to
balance
move.
somewhere
So
else.
you have
Yeah.
to pay attention to that. So I
Yeah.
would say, to answer your question, most people come to me with a symptom, right? Or they've been
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with something. I
Yeah.
very rarely have somebody come to me and say, hey, doc, I'm really stressed out. I need your help. Because the people that are stressed out don't have time to call
Right.
me to
That's
say that,
true. Right.
or they feel they just have to accept it. I'm
Yes.
stressed out. I'll call you when the stress is over.
Right.
I'll call Dr. Pingle after Christmas when the holiday stress is over. That's my favorite one. I'll start my diet after Christmas. Okay, all of us know.
There's
Come
never a good time,
on.
huh?
Like there's a,
I know.
I
I
mean, I
know.
run two businesses. I have a family. I have boys.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be present in my life, right? Uh, it never ends, right? What
Mm-hmm.
what better time than starting now? But I think this comes from when you were talking about earlier about female and boundaries. I think a lot of this comes from perfectionism
Yeah.
and this need that we have to do everything right all the time, and we have
Mm-hmm.
to do it perfectly all the time before we can commit to it.
Yeah.
And that is
Okay.
actually a recipe for disaster. I am a
Mm-hmm.
recovered perfectionist. I had to be growing up as a model. You had to be perfect for everybody. And it
Mm-hmm.
was all about what everyone else thought of you. It was
Yeah.
never about what does Tricia really want to do. It was,
Yeah.
well, what does Tricia look like today? What outfit does she have on? And is she
Mm-hmm.
standing in the right place and conveying the right emotion, right?
Right. Right.
That's a drastic example because obviously not everyone grows up in that world, but it's not that far off from social media. It's not that far off from us comparing ourselves to others,
Comparison.
feeling
Mm-hmm.
like we're supposed to be further than we are. How many out you say, well, I'm doing okay, but I really should be further. I really should be better at this. I really should take more action on this.
Yeah.
You're never going to get there if
Mm-hmm.
you keep trying to compare yourself to what your expectations are. My expectation every day since going through everything I've gone through is to wake up every day. That's it. I'm going to wake up every day. That's my
Mm-hmm.
expectation. I'm going to wake up. And then if I
Mm-hmm.
wake up, cool. My next step is I'm going to try to give some joy to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
whoever that may be. Maybe it's I smile at someone in the grocery store. Maybe it's I get on a podcast and I'm able to talk to a bunch of people at once and spread joy and gratitude and love.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, if my life ended tomorrow and someone said, "Oh man, I'm going to miss Dr. Pingel. She really brought me joy. I'm done. That is
Problem.
my
Yeah.
life expectation.
I love
And in
that.
order
Yeah.
to bring joy to people, I have to take care of myself and I have to
Yeah.
set boundaries. I don't have to do it perfectly. I don't
Hmm.
have to eat everything perfectly all the time. I don't have to, exercise an hour a day, every day, regimentally. But what I have to do is I have to take care of myself and I have to keep my mindset good so that I can pay that mindset forward. So then the goals of keeping up with your expectations become a lot easier because they're very
Mm.
clear.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
say, what is, like, just look at what are you trying to do? I have this vision that I'm going to be a great grandparent riding Space Mountain in Disneyland. So in order for me to get there, I have to make certain choices in my life, right? I
Right.
have
Right.
to go with the odds. I have to eat well, exercise, take care of myself, get rest,
Yeah.
set boundaries, say no to things. So I do think that's a really important thing and a really important takeaway is that we do always want to put things off because we want to do it perfectly. You will
Mm.
never do it perfectly. Plus, perfect is
No.
ridiculously boring. There's
That's for
there's no
sure.
room for growth,
Nobody
and I don't want
wins.
to be
Yeah.
around boring people. I want to be with people that fall down and stand back up and say, you know what? I fell down, but I learned, not to take that path with that bear anymore. I'm going to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
this way next time I run
Yeah.
into the same thing. And that is such a key component to health that we don't, well, you do, and I do, but we don't spend a lot of time on. We look at the numbers, we get the labs, great for information. We look at what's going on, but we also have to change our expectations on our health because that's what lowers our stress response in the future,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what steps, you've already shared some things that are really that are relatable, what you've talked
Yeah.
about. So what steps can women take that are, that are actionable but doable? Um, I tend to always start with the morning routine. It depends on the clients and where they are and really kind of where they're, yeah, just kind of how, what they've shared with me as far as their lifestyle routine. But I love morning sun. I
Mhm.
love
Me too.
time, gratitude, just spending quiet time. There used to be a time, and I think I've shared this on this, but I used to get up because, this was back in my corporate days when I used to get up and,
Mhm.
I think I was a little bit more, I was just kind of machine driven. I don't know that I was really stressed. I was just on
Mhm.
kind of this hamster wheel. And I did it and I was organized. I think it helps not only living with diabetes to be very
Yes.
routine. That sure has helped me through a lot of things in life. But I used to get up and turn the news on first thing in the morning. It was,
Oh, that's the worst.
I know, and I haven't done it in years. And my husband now, we stopped doing that. It was probably 10 years ago.
Mhm.
But that was part of my getting up, going to my corporate job. It's up at 5:30 in the morning, out the door before like 6:45, something like that. I'd put the news on. It was the news in the background. I don't know that I stared at it or paid that much attention to it, but it's still that noise, that
Mhm.
trigger that it takes away from that quiet time and that devotion to yourself first thing in the morning, just to kind of center yourself. I'm assuming that's probably something you practice and help people with as well.
I do have a morning routine, and one of them is not to check my cell phone.
That's a
Because as
hard
soon as
one.
people get up, they put it by their bed. Like, so first of all,
Yeah.
keep your cell phone by the bed,
No,
plug it in. Don't turn
that's
your
right.
cell phone on. Go downstairs, get your cup of coffee if you want, go outside,
Yeah.
sit. I chat with my husband every morning. That's our time.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Yes. Well, we talked about choice, right? You have a choice, so make
Yeah.
small choices throughout your day. We talked about, the three things, is it under control? Is it worth your energy? And what are you going to do about it? Morning routine is very important with turning off the cell phone, not immediately opening yourself up to the outside world, just being
Hmm.
present in your internal environment. And I think the other thing is one of the things that really helped me find my joy again and reconnect with me is on the creative side. So for any of you that follow me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I dance. I dance a lot. And when I was
Yes.
a kid, I loved to dance more than
Mm.
anything. My dad was a musician. There was always music in my house. And when I
Okay.
got older and I started working and I started doing the routine and the regimented, I stopped dancing. I stopped
Mm.
feeling my music. I just took it.
Mm.
I got so far in the left brain, I didn't spend much time in the right brain. And when
Ah.
I was at my lowest, I said, what did I used to do when I was a kid that it just brought me so much joy, and it was dance. And I've been dancing in hip hop classes since then. It's been about 8 or 9 years, and I do
Nice.
4 hip hop classes a week. You don't have to do dance, but find something creative, something you love to do that brings you to your true joy, something that's artistic and creative and removes you from the moment, and start doing it every day.
Oh,
Just
I
something,
love that.
10 minutes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Because here's the
Yes.
thing, we can't connect with anyone in our environment appropriately if we don't reconnect with
With
us.
ourselves. Good point.
So
That's a
find
good
yourself in
reminder.
there.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
a really good reminder. Yes. And as we're getting older and we're trapped by all these responsibilities, to find more joy, just like you say, just to step outside, just like as you remembered. I love to dance too. So yeah, it just reminds me, when the music song, we have music on in the house here and there,
Yep.
depending on what time of the day it is. But why not put it on more often? Choose a station that's going to inspire, whatever type of music that's going to inspire you to move. Um, to enjoy life, to have fun. And that, I mean, physiologically, that's naturally going to lower stress,
100%. No, there's
right?
tons
I
of
mean,
studies.
yeah.
There are tons of studies on dance specifically that
Mm,
is so much more cortisol lowering than even like tennis or golf or whatever, like dance specifically. And I think it's a combination of the music and the
yeah.
combination of your brain telling your body what to do at a
Yeah.
right time. There's also, like you were talking about nature, just going outside can lower your cortisol by 18%.
Yeah.
I mean, just simply being outside. So if
Hmm.
you have a
Hmm.
routine, if you read inside, try reading outside, if you
Simple as
walk on a
that.
treadmill, try taking it outside. I mean, little things like that. These are not big,
Yeah. Yeah.
big things. And I think it gets very overwhelming. Even hearing me
Yeah.
talk about all the different stressors and this and that,
Hmm.
everyone's like, Dr. Pingel, you're stressing me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the response to it is so simple and
Yeah.
so little,
Hmm.
not a
Yeah.
lot of your day. We
Yeah.
have to find that joy because we
Hmm.
got to wake up today. We're
There
up.
you go. That's right.
Here we are. So
Uh-huh.
let's make it a day,
Yeah, right. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the word choice, and that comes right back because I think when we tell ourselves, we give ourselves permission to
Mhm.
stop and dance, play, step outside, that's taking back ourselves. It's taking back, it's putting a little, we feel like we're in control all day because we're busy and we're doing it and we're checking off the to-do list. But we're in control of things that really don't matter. So this is a
Mhm.
choice that we can make that it can really serve us not only on the inside, but how it affects everybody around us. We
Oh,
didn't even
100%.
we didn't even talk about all that.
Spread the joy. I mean, you attract what you put out there. So
Hmm.
spread the joy,
Yeah, really
and the
good.
joy will come back to you.
It sure does.
But we really do. It comes down to really understanding ourselves and loving ourselves unconditionally and authentically as ourselves.
Hmm.
And not everyone's going to like ourselves authentically. I don't know. There's probably people that say, well, I don't like people that dance and they don't want to follow me. That's cool. Um, but
Yeah,
if we
I
show
get
up
it.
as our authentic selves, really loving who we are and embracing who we are, even with an autoimmune disease, and saying, yeah, I am someone with type 1 diabetes, and that is who I am. And I am
Hmm.
proud of it. And I have to
Hmm.
manage this or I get to manage this, and that's
I get
okay.
to manage it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once we start becoming more authentically ourselves and connecting with ourselves with the things that make us happy and bring us joy, it absolutely changes our environment. It raises the frequency around us, and the
Yeah.
stress will start to come down, and other health issues and symptoms will start to disappear.
There you go. Start there.
You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate getting to know you and talking and sharing you with our listeners today. Where can where can listeners connect with you and find you?
Absolutely. Well, drpingel.com is a great start. drpingel.com.
Hmm.
If you are curious if stress is really having an impact on you, I do have a quiz, an adrenal fatigue quiz, which just kind of calls attention to the symptoms that might be associated with a little too much
Good
cortisol
idea.
floating around or imbalanced cortisol. I do also, if you head over to my social media profiles, Instagram, Facebook, and you go to my link in bio, I do actually offer a lab list too, if you
Oh,
want to see what
nice.
labs I run.
Mm,
And I would encourage you, follow me on these platforms and say hello,
yeah,
because that is why I'm out there. I am
that's
out
right.
there to build community. I'm not out
Hmm.
there just to dance. I'm out there
I get
to
it.
build community. And I want to hear
Hmm.
from you. I want to hear, hey, I heard you here.
Yeah,
And where are you from? And those
right.
are the things that if we start really connecting with each other, I think our health as a whole will improve. So find
Mm,
me, say hello, And I hope that today was really helpful for your
Oh,
listeners.
it sure was. Yes. I learned a lot. Yes. And
Mhm.
sometimes we walk around thinking we kind of have it figured out and we know what the steps are. But I like the reiteration and just just the joy that you share about how this can be part of our lives and our care, our
Yeah.
long-term care. Because, we're here for as long as we know we are, and for whatever that day is. But yeah, to make the most of it right now, and to yeah, because we get to. I love it.
Yes.
Well, I will link all of your connections right here in the show notes. So definitely reach out and find Dr. Pingel. Dr. Tricia, thank you so much. Joy to get to know you. And
Oh, so much fun. Thank you.
yeah, so we'll be back in here next week. Y'all have a beautiful day.